All well? ठीक है. So let's start with race again. So-called race, not what we understand race is. Right. So race is a subspecies, you can say. Right? Or you can say a population which carry a unique set of gene frequency, right? एक unique genetic composition होता है जिसका. And this composition is due to its common descent, isn't it? It's a population which have a unique genetic composition, and this is because of the common descent. यही था, right? And this genetic composition differs from other populations of the same species, isn't it? Now, how we can you can say classify the races? So for classification, we uses certain criteria. Right. What are the general conditions that any criteria should fulfill? Who suggested? So most of them suggested, but yes, we are writing Robert Boyd. Right? Robert Boyd suggested some criteria on the basis of which we can classify different races. Right? So what are the different criteria that we have taken? We have taken the morphological criteria. That means the visible traits to classify genetic, and the third one is dermatoglyphic, or you can say fingerprint. Right? This way we can see, right? We had discussed morphological yesterday, so we have sub-classified morphological criteria into morphoscopic and morphometric. Morphoscopic means that you can just see through your eyes. That means skin color, right? Hair color, hair form, and hair texture, right? We can talk about eye, right? इसका shape and इसका color, right? And we also talk about the body shape, right? Body shape can be linear, lateral, linear with traces of lateral, right? Morphometric, we had discussed some metric criteria. On the basis of that, we can find out cephalic index or cranial index. We can find out facial index. We can find out nasal index. And we can talk about the height. Okay? This is what we have covered, right? Today we'll take the genetic criteria. Okay? So, genetic criteria. See, genetic criteria is little bit valid, right? As compared to the morphological criteria, right? So we can see the genetic criteria as serological, that means related to blood, right? Non-serological, that are not related to blood, right? And DNA and chromosome, right? These some areas in DNA or chromosome can also act as genetic marker for identification of a particular population, right? Serological can be further subclassified into blood antigens, right? Uh, then plasma proteins and blood enzymes. See, we have covered it 2-3 times. पॉलीमॉर्फिज्म में भी हमने सिमिलर बात किया था, यहाँ पे भी कर रहे हैं, नेक्स्ट चैप्टर में फिर से करेंगे, राइट? सो आई बिलीव कि आपको ये रट जाएगा तब तक, 3-4 बार हो जाएगा तो ठीक है. सो दैट इज वाई आई एम डूइंग इट अगेन एंड अगेन, ठीक है. सो if you talk about the first one, that is the blood group antigens, right? So it include like ABO system, right? A antigen, B antigen, then RH रीसस मंकी से डिराइव किया हुआ है, राइट? हीमोग्लोबिन का भी एंटीजन होता है, राइट? हीमोग्लोबिन एंड मेनी सच एंटीजन्स आर देयर, राइट? प्लाज्मा प्रोटीन लाइक वी हैव हेप्टोग्लोबिन and we have transferrin, right? Blood enzyme like G6PD, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase, right? Non-serological, we have secretor gene and taster gene, right? Secretor gene and taster gene. We talk about DNA and chromosomes, so naturally we have this RFLPs, single nucleotide polymorphism, etc., etc., right? Even the Y chromosome, right? There are variation in the Y chromosome across the populations. Japanese have extraordinary large Y chromosome as compared to the other populations, right? So let us talk about these one by one. So let's take first one, ABO blood group or blood group antigens. O blood group is the most common in the world, then comes, after O comes A, then B, right? And AB is very rare. AB is very rare. How many of AB blood group? Not that rare then, right? Even if one is present, then not that rare, right? Sample size छोटा है ना हमारा. Okay, so you understand? O is highest, then A, then B, then AB. Clear? O blood group सबसे ज़्यादा है. Now, A blood group right? A blood group have its variant A1 and A2. A2 is found in maximum frequency among Caucasoids. It is found in maximum frequency among Caucasoids. B blood group is found mostly among the Asians. B blood group is mainly found among Asians like Mongoloids, right? The population of say Bihar and neighboring area, we have B blood group, right? How many people from Bihar and have B blood group? दोनों correspond कर रहे हैं B and Bihar, right? So that shows you have B blood group. Then it is not universally that all Biharis do not have B blood group, right? And the Bihar does not derive from B only, right? B for Bihar. So B is mainly found among Asians, right? O blood group, right, is mainly concentrated among American Indians. American Indians. O blood group is concentrated among American Indians. Red Indians, you can say, American Red Indians. Right. Next is your RH system. Right. So RH system में हमारे पास क्या होते हैं? Mainly या तो हम RH positive समझते हैं या RH negative, right? वैसे तो इसकी बहुत सारी एलील्स होती हैं, बट जनरल हमारा कंसेप्शन क्या होता है? RH positive and negative. See, in the world, the distribution is like 85% are positive in the world and just 15% are RH negative. Right? You remember genetic हम तब बात कर रहे थे लोड की, right? कि सेम पॉपुलेशन में अगर शादी होता है तो जेनेटिक ये वाला इनकम्पैटिबिलिटी रिएक्शन कम होता है. कॉन्सेंग्यूनिटी का बेनिफिट में हम बात कर रहे थे, राइट? सो RH नेगेटिव की जो फ्रीक्वेंसी है ये वेरी करती है अलग अलग पॉपुलेशंस में, राइट? इट इज मैक्सिमम अमंग कॉकोसॉइड्स. RH negative is maximum among caucasoids. Then comes negroids, and then comes mongoloids. Right. There is a place in, or you can say there is a region in Spain, Basque region. It's a disturbed region. Right, you can say kind of autonomy struggle is going on in this particular region. अगर आप current affairs follow करते हैं तो आपको पता होगा. Basque region, right? This is a region in Spain. In this region, RH negative frequency is very high. As high as more than 30%, 33% के approx. Right. Next, hemoglobin. Hemoglobin also have many variants, right? Like HbA is normal hemoglobin, right? HbS sickle cell. So it is found among some African populations, right? It is found among southern and central Indian people. Right? Next is HbE. HbE is found where? Southeast Asia. It is found among Northeast Indian tribes. right? Southeast Asia, Northeast Indian tribes, right? Next is G6PD. सॉरी G6PD से पहले तो वो था ना, प्लाज्मा प्रोटीन्स था. सो प्लाज्मा प्रोटीन्स की बात कर लेते हैं. सो प्लाज्मा प्रोटीन्स, हेप्टोग्लोबिन, haptoglobin is represented by HP, HP, H capital, P small. It has two variants, HP1 and HP2. HP1 and HP2. HP1 gene, HP1 gene is found in 60 to 70%, 60 to 70% of the population of tropical Africa, right? Approximately 40% of Western Europe, and it is very low in Asia, Western Europe, and very low in Asia. Transferrin, सी हेप्टोग्लोबिन का काम क्या है, जो फ्री हीमोग्लोबिन है आपकी स्ट्रीम में, ब्लड स्ट्रीम में, उसको रिमूव करना, बिकॉज इट कैन हार्म, राइट. एंड ट्रांसफेरिन का काम क्या है, फ्री आयरन को रिमूव करना सर्कुलेशन से, राइट. फ्री आयरन कैन ऑल्सो हार्म. सो इट हैज वेरियस वेरिएंट्स. ट्रांसफेरिन हैज वेरियस वेरिएंट्स. TFA, TFB, right, TFC, TFD, TFE, right, TFD chai, TFD chai is particularly found among Chinese. TFD chai is particularly found among Chinese, Southeast and East Asian populations. Southeast and East Asian populations. Then G6PD, ये अलग अलग बहुत सारे वेरिएंट्स हैं, ये तो हमने लिमिटेड ही लिखे हैं, बहुत सारे जीन्स हैं इसके, पॉलीमॉर्फिक ट्रेट है ना, राइट. G6PD is an enzyme which protect the RBCs against oxidative damage, by converting glucose 6-phosphate to glucose 6-phosphate to 6-phosphogluconate. Right, G6PD, right. It has many variants or many genes. GDB positive, This is normal variant GD. B positive is normal variant. Others are GD, B negative, GD, A positive, GD, A negative, right? The half-life of this one is 62 days. Half-life of this one is 62 days, and that of these two is just 13 days. So you know that if these variants, especially these two variants, are available, what will happen? There will be deficiency of G6PD, right? And this G6PD deficiency is also adaptive. Basically because it provides resistance against malaria. ठीक है? हाँ, ये वाला तो ऑक्सीडेटिव डैमेज को प्रोटेक्ट कर रहा है, तभी तो ये 62 डेज की लाइफस्टाइल है, इसकी लाइफ साइकिल है ना? तो ये आरबीसीज को बचाता रहेगा. बट अगर ये खुद ही नहीं है तो बचाएगा किसको? इसका खुद का ही डिस्ट्रक्शन हो जाता है जल्दी, राइट? क्लियर? सो डू राइट द GD A positive, A negative are in high frequency among Africans, Southeast Asia, India, Africa, Southeast Asia, India, and Mediterranean region. Right? Next is your known serological. So first one is secretor. Secretor is a blood group like substance. Blood group like substance, इसको underline कर लेना. Blood group like substance which occur in various body secretions such as sweat, tear, semen, etc. It is coded by a gene capital S, right? And it has an allele small s. So naturally capital S is dominant over the small s. Capital S is dominant over the small s. The capital S is found in high frequency among Caucasoids, right? Then Mongoloids, and then Negroids. राइट? कॉकोसॉइड्स में सबसे ज़्यादा मिलेगा कैपिटल एस और सबसे कम मिलेगा निग्रोइड्स में. ठीक है? नेक्स्ट इज टेस्टर जीन और टेस्टिंग एबिलिटी. Testers are those individuals which can taste PTC, कैपिटल में लिखना, कैपिटल P, कैपिटल T, कैपिटल C, फिनाइल थायोकार्बामाइड, फिनाइल थायोकार्बामाइड, PTC. right? Phenyl thiocarbamide, right? It is coded by two genes, capital T and small t. Capital T is dominant over the small t, right? That means क्या क्या combination हो सकते हैं इसके? Capital T, capital T, capital T, and small t. The upper two are testers and the lower one is non-tester, right? Again, इसकी frequency भी different populations में vary करती है. So the frequency of the tester gene vary in different populations. Same, caucasoids, mongoloids and negroids. ठीक है? Right. Chromosome and DNA. The length of Y chromosome is higher among the Japanese population, right? और DNA तो सबका अलग अलग ही है ना, DNA के तो बहुत सारे मार्कर्स हैं, right? Next is dermatoglyphic. 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 So dermatoglyphics is the study of it is the study of fingerprints. It is the study of fingerprints, palm prints, right? Sole prints, lip prints, etc. अलग अलग बॉडी के जितने भी पार्ट्स पे अलग अलग आपके जो प्रिंट्स हैं वो, राइट? नाउ ये प्रिंट्स जरूरी नहीं है, बहुत ज़्यादा यू कैन से वैलिड नहीं होते हैं, क्योंकि मेरे जैसे इंसान के भी देखोगे तो नहीं मिलेंगे, ठीक से ढूंढने पे मिलेंगे, राइट? जिससे ज़्यादा हार्ड यूज करता है सो उसके मुश्किल है देख पाना, राइट? इसीलिए लेबरर्स जो होंगे दे विल नॉट बी एबल टू इसीलिए उनका बेचारों का आधार ही आधी बार ऑथेंटिकेट नहीं होता है, राइट? सो बिकॉज उनका पहले होना चाहिए ना, इतने ज़्यादा रफ यूज होता है कि सब उड़ जाता है फिंगरप्रिंट्स वगैरह, राइट? सो डर्मेटोग्लाइफिक, इसीलिए डर्मेटोग्लाइफिक में क्या होता है, कुछ आपकी बॉडी पे जिस फिंगरप्रिंट्स में कुछ यूनिक पैटर्न्स होते हैं, लाइक यू हैव लूप्स, you have holes, and you have arches, right? So loops look like this, holes look like this, arches look like this, right? Loops, holes and arches. So loops are more common among caucasoids. These are more common among mongoloids, and these are more common among negroids. ठीक है. So on the basis of that you can find out the race. Okay. Now these are certain criteria on the basis of which we classify the races. Are these criteria valid? That's a big question. Okay, so let's take another topic, that is criticism or of the criteria, or you may say what are the limitations of these criteria. Limitations of racial criteria. क्या limitation है racial criterias की? Right. So one by one we will take. Number one, skin color. It's an adaptive trait. Glogger's rule suggests that populations living near the tropics tend to have higher concentration of melanin. Tend to have higher concentration of melanin. ठीक है? Done? So naturally the populations living near the poles have lower concentration, right? So that we will not be writing, right? The same is applicable on eye color, the same is applicable on hair color. Is it clear? The same is applicable, right? Next is the body shape, linearity and all, right? Or so Allen's, this is an adaptive trait, this is a adaptive trait, because Allen's rule suggests that populations, or you can say not population, you write the size of organisms tend to increase from tropics towards the poles. Tropics towards the poles. Right? You may simply say like this. This is 0 degree, this is 90 degree. Right? As you move from the tropics towards the poles, so the size increase, right? For example, tropical bears and polar bears, right? Why it happens? Because it's adaptive. Why it is adaptive? Because the bigger is the size, the smaller is the surface area as compared to their volume, right? Bigger is the size, smaller is the surface area exposed to the outer environment as compared to the volume. So it helps in conservation of heat, right? Similarly, there is another rule, Bergmann's rule. This rule suggests that the size of extremities decrease from tropics toward the poles. You can make another diagram, 0 degree, 90 degree, as you move from tropics to us, right? So size of extremity, extremity means this is the torso part, right? Legs, hands, finger length, nose, ear, everything is an extremity, right? So if you see, the Eskimos have short fingers, very short fingers, right? Even nose is very short. छोटा सा नाक होगा, कान भी छोटे होते हैं, राइट? सब कुछ छोटा छोटा होता है उनके पास, हाथ, राइट, लेग्स, हैंड्स, एवरीथिंग, राइट? सो डन, that is Bergmann's rule, right? Okay, next, nasal index, or you can say the nose shape, is also adaptive. The shape of the nose it is also adaptive, right? How it is adaptive? Because narrow nostrils long and narrow nostrils लिखो, increases the surface area which can sufficiently warm up the inhaled air right? On the other hand, short and broad nostril is adaptive in warm environments, right? Because these allow quick exhalation of heat, thereby maintaining the body temperature, right? Next, Franz Boas research suggests that the size of the cranium respond to the environmental pressures. You remember, I believe, size of the cranium respond to the environmental pressures, right? Next, the human genome project. Next point, the human genome project suggested that intraracial variations are more, right, 94 to 96% than interracial variations. That means 4 to 6% of the total variations, right? That again suggests that race नाम की कोई चीज categorize करना गलत है, right? What Human Genome Project propose is that we all humans are fundamentally alike, right? We are more similar than different, right? All of us have कितने chromosomes हैं? 46 chromosomes हैं, right? All of us have similar kind of genetic makeup, right? There is a slight variation, right? And the variations, if you say the three broad categories of races that you take, that is the Caucasoid, Mongoloid, and Negroid. So a Caucasoid is, it varies to this extent. This varies to this extent. Within that, the variation between these three is just 4 to 6%, right? That means what? You cannot classify humans into discrete population groups. You cannot classify humans into discrete population groups. That is what our purpose is. ठीक है? आप humans को discrete population groups में नहीं categorize कर सकते हो. ठीक है? रेस के अंदर इतनी वेरिएशन क्यों है? आप बताओ क्यों है? What are the factors in race formation? Speciation. Speciation हो गया तो नई species बन गई डियर. That means हम बात ही नहीं कर रहे उसके, हम species के अंदर अंदर ही बात कर रहे हैं. तो उस वर्ड को तो हटा दो. अब बाकी के बताओ. हाँ. नो डियर, बाहर कम इसलिए क्योंकि फंडामेंटली हम एक ही हैं. अंदर इसलिए है, मान लिया इंडिया के अंदर ही कितनी अलग अलग ज्योग्राफिकल लोकेशंस हैं. अब कश्मीर में जाओगे तो वहां पे नैरो नोस्ट्रिल इज डिमांडेड. इट इज नेसेसरी. लॉन्ग एंड नैरो नोज इज नेसेसरी, right? If you go there, then you are more likely to suffer from the cold than a person who is living there, right? Right? Say if you live in southern India, in a humid area, right? Hot and humid area, you require a broad and short nose so that quick exhalation ho sake. Right? If you live in southern India, naturally your darker skin is adaptive there. Right? Because sunlight is straight. ठीक है, ज़्यादा fair skin वहाँ पे it can be you can say invite for cancer, isn't it? So different variation can be due to number one environmental factors. That means एक अलग जगह. दूसरा हो सकता है intermixing की वजह से भी हो जाए. अलग अलग populations mix होके, right? Gene flow की वजह से भी बदलाव आ सकता है. Mutation भी एक कारण हो सकता है. और ये सारे ट्रेट सेलेक्ट होते चले गए उसके कारण भी हो सकता है ना। तो अलग अलग रीजन्स हो सकता है, इसीलिए नहीं कैटेगराइज कर सकते क्योंकि नेचर अपना रोल प्ले कर रहा है। कॉमन डिसेंट है कि नहीं है वो नहीं समझ पा रहे हैं हम, right? That was the reason that why we should not categorize humans into discrete population groups that we call races. ठीक है, कैटेगराइज करना। और भी एक प्रॉब्लमेटिक चीज क्या है, एक ये वैल्यू लोडेड है। वैल्यू लोडेड इन द सेंस इट हैज यू कैन से एम्बेडेड नोशन ऑफ सुपीरियरिटी एंड इंफीरियरिटी विद इन इट। ठीक है, इसलिए भी नहीं कैटेगराइज करना है, राइट? बिकॉज रेस इज डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड टू रेसिज्म, राइट? If you know want to understand it, just read that white man's burden, एक बार पढ़ के देख लेना, थोड़ा मजा आ जाएगा आपको। ठीक है, नेक्स्ट टॉपिक इज दैट the is race a biological or a social construct? Is race a biological construct? Yes or no? If yes, give reasons. If no, give reasons. If no, then what is it? It's a social construct. Who constructed this then? It's a social construct of colonial origin. Historically, if you see, traditionally, races are defined as the biological population groups. Historically, right? How they were defined? On the basis of observable physical variations. ऑब्जर्वेबल फिजिकल वेरिएशंस के बेसिस पे डिफाइन की जाती थी वो। फॉरगेट अबाउट द जेनेटिक, बट वी हैव रिजेक्टेड दैट ऑन द जेनेटिक लाइंस एज वेल, राइट? अगर आप देखोगे जितने भी बायोलॉजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी स्टार्टेड एज द स्टडी ऑफ रेसेस। यू रिमेंबर फिजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी वर्सेस बायोलॉजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी? सो फिजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी जो स्टार्ट हुई थी, लाइक पॉल ब्रोका, ब्लूमेनबेक, all these scholars were basically the raciologists, right? They used to study race, they used to classify races, right? ब्लूमेनबेक, ब्रोका, इनके पास बहुत बड़ा कलेक्शन होता है स्कल्स का, बोन्स का। वो मेजर कर करके बताते रहते थे, देखो इसमें इतना है, इसका हेड साइज ऐसा है, इसलिए ये अलग है, ये अलग है, right? They used to do that exercise only, right? So on the basis of observable physical variations, the scholars used to classify people into discrete population groups that we call races, right? Now this was the basis. We know that there is a limitation of this that just now we did. So we says it is not a biological construct, right? हम इसके genetic regions दे चुके हैं, हम इसके biological regions की adaptive है वो दे चुके हैं, right? Then we'll say it's a social construct. Who constructed this? Colonial masters have constructed this, right? Best evidence is white man's burden. Rudyard Kipling's white man's burden. ठीक है, लिख दो, राइट? इतने दिनों से सुनते आ रहे हो, क्यों सुनते आ रहे हो, राइट? मेरा कोई फेवरेट नहीं है, ठीक है? सो वुड यू लाइक टू ट्राई दिस आंसर और शुड आई डिक्टेट? एक बार कोशिश तो करो, 10 मिनट तो, 5 मिनट तो कोशिश करो. Do biological races exist in nature? In nature, they do exist, है ना? But among humans, they do not exist. Why they do not exist? वो वाली बातें करनी है. So introduction तो लिखो कम से कम. हाँ, तो जेनेटिक क्राइटेरिया दे रहे हैं तो हमने रिजेक्ट भी तो कर दिया ना बाद में कि 94 to 96% क्या हो रहा है, वो भी तो रिजेक्ट कर दिया ना हमने. Do you think race is at all a valid concept? It is not. So what is valid then? Ujjwal, if it is not a valid concept, race is not valid concept, then what is it? Which concept is valid then? How will we replace race with, कौन से concept से replace करेंगे इसको हम? Ethnic groups. ठीक है, एथनिक ग्रुप का कॉन्सेप्ट यूनेस्को बताता है, एशली मोंटेगू बताता है. हम्म. वो रेस है ह्यूमंस की जो मानी जाती है, सब स्पीसी मानी जाती है. ऑल दो बेसिकली क्या होता है देखो मैं बताता हूँ. होमो सेपियंस सेपियंस एंड होमो सेपियंस निएंडरथैलेंसिस, ऐसे लिखा मिलता है आपको, राइट? होमो सेपियंस देनिसोवंस ऑल्सो यू मे फाइंड समवेयर, राइट? पहले ऐसा माना जाता था कि ये अलग है, राइट? निएंडरथल जो है वो अलग है. बट आज की डेट, पहले क्या माना जाता था कि ये मॉडर्न ह्यूमंस की कैटेगरीज ही हैं, राइट? बट आज की डेट में हम क्या देखते हैं कि निएंडरथल्स आर सेपरेट, देनिसोवंस आर सेपरेट एंड वी आर सेपियंस. वो कैटेगराइजेशन पहले होता था, अभी नहीं होता है. अब हम सेपियंस हैं, ठीक है? होमो सेपियंस हम हैं और वो होमो निएंडरथैलेंसिस है और वो होमो देनिसोवंस है, ठीक है? वो क्लोजली रिलेटेड स्पीसीज हैं, पहले उनको हम स्पीसीज नहीं मानते थे, ठीक है? बट जो आपका स्वांटे पाबो का वर्क है, जो पिछली बार उनको नोबेल प्राइज मिला है और उसी के का चलते उस पर क्वेश्चन भी आ गया था यूपीएससी में, राइट? नोबेल प्राइज उनको मिला और पढ़ना आपको पड़ा, ठीक है? देखा ना आपने, जब भी कोई न्यूज़ में होता है तो क्वेश्चन तो आएगा, राइट? सो एनीथिंग दैट इज देयर इन एंड अराउंड यू, कीप ऑन फॉलोइंग द न्यूज़पेपर, यू मे फाइंड समथिंग, राइट? कोई सपोज ऐसा ना हो कि यूनेस्को की स्टेटमेंट को इतने साल हो गए, रेस में ब्लैक लाइव्स मैटर मूवमेंट चला तो रेस पे क्वेश्चन आना पक्का है ना? आया फिर क्वेश्चन. सो एवरीथिंग, सी द एग्जामिनर इज ऑल्सो ह्यूमन, राइट? एंड ही इज नॉट अलूफ ऑफ द सोशल लाइफ इन एंड अराउंड. वो भी न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ता है, वो भी फॉलो अप लेता है ना? डू राइट, लिख लो. हम्म. हम्म. हाँ, बहुत सारे रिसर्चेज है, बहुत सारे हैं. Even if I can provide, see, there is a tribe, this Shambuli. Hunting is the sole function of women. No, sorry, fishing and is the sole function of women. There is a tribe, Aish hunters of Paraguay. Aish, ACHE. Among them also women do hunting. So ऐसा नहीं है कि hunting कहीं होती नहीं है, women नहीं करती हैं, right? करती हैं, बिल्कुल. Right? Normally, the general perception is that general people see that women's role is limited to the household chores and men's role. But why do you bring gender differentiation in race? अच्छा, न्यूज़ की बात किया. हाँ, ठीक है. Don't let me to another stream, right? पता लगे यहाँ पे 4-5 और चल रहा है. ठीक है. हाँ, बाद में बात करो ये वाली. ठीक है. वो तो मुझे याद आ गया बीच में. अब ये स्टोरी चल जाती फिर. ठीक है. ओके. डू राइट. आप लिखो ना पहले अपना. लिख लिया. वेरी नाइस. एक एक लाइन सभी ने लिख ली. races races do exist in nature, do exist in nature. However, the application of the concept of race on humans is controversial. Full stop. There is a debate. There was a debate, not is. There was a debate among anthropologists. Among anthropologists on the concept of race and validity of the concept of race itself. Right? Validity. Right. Next paragraph. Early anthropologists such as Paul Broca, Blumenbach, etc. Blumenbach, etc. used to classify races based on observable physical variations, observable physical variations, observable physical variations. They argued that race is a biological concept. Right? Heading validity of race as a biological concept. Heading though validity of race as a biological concept. Right. Races has been categorized historically based on morphological, genetic and dermatoglyphic criterias such as skin color, hair color, form, texture, eye color, cranial, facial and nasal index, right. नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ, नेजल इंडेक्स और भी लिख लो, आपके जेनेटिक वाले भी लिख लो, ठीक है, जो भी एटसेट्रा लिख देना कहीं पे, जहाँ पे रुकने का मन करे वहाँ एटसेट्रा कर देना, ठीक है। नेक्स्ट पैराग्राफ, हाउएवर द वैलिडिटी ऑफ बायोलॉजिकल क्राइटेरिया is contested because most of the morphological traits are adaptive in nature. Most of the morphological traits are adaptive in nature. एक एग्जाम्पल लिख लो कोई भी, स्किन कलर का लिख लो, नोज का लिख लो, आप जो भी लिखना चाहो, जो पहले लिखा था लिख लो, टेक योर टाइम। लिख लिया? एलैबोरेट करो डियर। स्किन कलर लिखते हो कि स्किन कलर कहाँ पे कैसा मिल रहा है, नोज का शेप कहाँ पे कैसा मिल रहा है, ठीक है, जो पहले लिखा था हमने थोड़ी देर पहले वही लिख लो। राइट। सेकंड, इसी में लिखो, हाउएवर के वाला पहला पॉइंट बना लो, इसको सेकंड बना दो, राइट। सेकंड, द phenotypic traits cannot be solely attributed to the genetic factors. Traits cannot be solely attributed to genetic factors, right? Next, human populations, next point, human populations have been interbreeding since their origin, so there exist no pure races. Next point, Human Genome Project research by Craig Venter and Francis Collins concluded that concluded that interracial variations constitute just 4 to 6% 4 to 6% of the total variations, right? Next is, so you can say race is not biological. So it can be said race is not biological concept when applied to humans. Rather, it is a social construct. Right. Next heading though, race as a social construct. Race is a construct of colonial origin. It was developed by Western colonial powers to establish and maintain their hegemony, establish and maintain their hegemony, right? For example, right, Rudyard Kipling's White Man's Burden reflect the notion of superiority of white races. Right. Next paragraph. Since race as a concept is value loaded and it emphasize on the notion of superiority and inferiority of colonial origin so anthropologists had rejected इधर रख दो had rejected this concept full stop. Next paragraph. UNESCO's statement on race comma Ashley Montagu and others Ashley Montagu and others argued for replacing the term race with with ethnic groups, with ethnic groups. Livingstone argued for using the term clients in place of race. Clients in place of race. Right? Okay. So what we have said, race is not a valid concept at all. We started with a concept, so we have said whether it is a biological concept, no. Now, do we use race in biological anthropology? Yes. Where do we use? Where do we use? अरे बता चुका हूँ, 2-3 बार बता चुका हूँ. स्वराज, फोरेंसिक में यूज करते हैं डियर, बताया तो था. फोरेंसिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में नहीं बताया ये वाली बात. फोरेंसिक एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में आज भी यूज करते हैं. ठीक है. फोरेंसिक में क्यों यूज करते हैं? अगर आपको कोई बोन मिल जाती है या फिर कोई और स्पेसिमेन मिल जाता है तो यू कैन से रूल आउट दैट दिस बॉडी बिलोंग टू दिस पर्टिकुलर रेस. सो एक एरिया मिल जाता है आपको स्टडी करने का, एक डायरेक्शन मिल जाती है. इसलिए अभी भी फोरेंसिक्स वाले यूज करते हैं, अदरवाइज इट इज नो लॉन्गर यूज्ड एनीवेयर. सो एक लास्ट में एक लाइन डाली जा सकती है, राइट, दैट दिस कॉन्सेप्ट इज नो लॉन्गर यूज्ड इन एंथ्रोपोलॉजी एक्सेप्ट इन forensic anthropology. Right. Now let's talk about alternative concepts of race. Alternative concept of race. So alternative concepts include अगर आप रेस यूज नहीं करोगे तो क्या यूज करोगे? So ethnic groups that was proposed by Montagu. Right, it was proposed almost by every leading anthropologist. Right, since Montagu was more visible, student था बोआस का. And second is Livingstone का जो concept है clines. Cline simply means a distribution of allelic frequencies on space. क्या आप ऐसा कह सकते हो कि ए ब्लड ग्रुप यहाँ से शुरू हुआ, यूरोप से शुरू हुआ, और ये लाइन बीच में हमने खींच दिया, इस साइड में प्योरली ए ब्लड ग्रुप है और इस साइड में बी ब्लड ग्रुप है? कह सकते हो ऐसा? जब नहीं कह सकते हो तो कैसे डिस्क्रीट पॉपुलेशन में करोगे? जब वो नहीं कर सकते हो तो रेसेस नहीं एग्जिस्ट करती हैं. दैट मीन्स व्हाट? एलिलिक फ्रीक्वेंसीज आर डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड ओवर द स्पेस. दैट मीन्स देयर इज मोर कंसंट्रेशन इन दिस साइड, a little less, a little less, a little less. The B blood group, when you go in the west side, it is decreasing. A blood group, when you move in the eastern side, it is decreasing. So it is the distribution of allelic frequencies over space. That is what who says? Livingstone says. You remember Livingstone हमने पहले भी बात किया है. Introduction of agriculture, selection of HBE variant in northeast, उन्हीं का hypothesis था. ठीक है. What are ethnic groups? Right. So ethnic group is much wider concept than a race, right? See, if you say race, it is defined on the basis of biology, right? Ethnic group, on the other hand, is much wider concept, right? Race is what? A group of people which possess similar biological features. That is a race. Ethnic group can be on the basis of shared history, shared culture, shared language, right? It may be, you can say, shared, say, religion, region, nationality. Okay, so this is much wider. It may include the biological features as well. That we people look similar, so we are one. That may include. Done? Right? The feeling of we-ness that any ethnic group have, that we call is ethnicity. So ethnicity is the we feeling. It is the we feeling within that group. Okay? So race and ethnicity. Right? Ethnicity is the group feeling, in group feeling within a group. Right? That group may be based on anything. It may be a caste group. Right. So let me just show you. I might have told you some time back. Right. Any individual, right, say this guy of our, right, so this guy कहता है हम हैं, हम मतलब मैं, मेरे पूरे बॉडी के ऑर्गन्स हम, राइट, मेरी इंडिविजुअल आइडेंटिटी है, राइट, हम एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, सो इसकी इंडिविजुअल आइडेंटिटी है. ये अपने आप को कुछ समझता है, ठीक है, क्या समझता है वो ये खुद जानता है, राइट. ओके, अब लोग भी इसको कुछ समझते हैं, राइट. वो इसकी कलेक्टिव आइडेंटिटी है, राइट. This collective identity is given to this guy by a group, right? And that group feel that we are one. So that is an ethnic group. So the collective identity that all of us possess is given by a group, right? A social group, right? So that group that provides you that identity is an ethnic group, right? And this ethnic group can be based on various parameters. Say it can be based on religion, right? कि एक particular religion को belong करते हैं ये. So Hindu या Muslim या Christian, whatever, right? So that gives you the identity of the religion, right? Say North Indian, South Indian, so region, right? Say Hindi speaker, English speaker, Sanskrit speaker, Tamil speaker, Telugu speaker, वो भी एक identity है, right? Say if Hindu then belong to a caste, that is also an identity, right? Say you may talk about shared history, कि हमने साथ में सफ़र किया है पूरा ब्रिटिशर्स को, we have a shared history, right? So that suffering united us somehow. There were other factors, naturally, yes. So shared history. Nowadays, the citizenship is uniting us, right? So the political, you can say, organization is uniting us. So that is creating an ethnic group, and the we feeling of this ethnic group among the individuals because of that identity is ethnicity, right? So ethnicity का टॉपिक हम पेपर 2 में करेंगे, बट मैंने आपको थोड़ा सा टच करवाया अभी, ठीक है? Clear? What is ethnic group? What is a race? How both of these vary? I believe you understand. So ethnic group can be a group of people based on common history, common religion, common region, common language, etc. etc. ठीक है? Right? So ethnic group is much wider and neutral concept than that of race. Ethnic group was supported and proposed by the leading anthropologists and the UNESCO. ठीक है? Done? Klein, on the other hand, Klein was proposed by Livingstone in his article on the known existence of human races, on the known existence of human races, right? Kleins represent the distribution of allele frequencies over the space. Right. According to him, the race is a static concept. He suggested that research should focus on geographical variation of a single trait or clinal variations of a single trait or clinal. हेलीकॉप्टर बंद हो जाता है, उसके बाद बोलता हूँ. Let this helicopter stop. इलेक्शन ड्यूटी पे है ये. अरे नहीं डियर, this is they are working on that. लैंड ही नहीं कर रहा है. ओके, So research should focus on geographical variation of a single trait, or what we call clinal variation, right? According to him, there are no races, there were only clines. There were no races, there were only clines. Right. Okay. Now यूनेस्को's स्टेटमेंट ऑन रेस आप पढ़ के आना कल, ठीक है? रेसिज्म की बात करते हैं. No one is going to ask you what is the statement of UNESCO, but you should know it. Make sure you write down, लिख के लेके आना कल. UNESCO's statement on race, 10 marker. क्यों आया, किसके अगेंस्ट में आया, क्या फायदा हुआ, राइट? This American Anthropological Association also have, unanimously rejected race as a concept. क्योंकि American Anthropological Association is one of the largest association of anthropologists in the world, so उनका word count करता है. So अगर हम race की बात करें, race को यूनेस्को ने रिजेक्ट किया, मॉन्टेग्यू ने रिजेक्ट किया, लिविंगस्टोन ने रिजेक्ट किया, इवन बॉयड भी रिजेक्ट कर देता है, राइट? देन यू टॉक अबाउट दिस, से अमेरिकन एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल एसोसिएशन, दे हैव रिजेक्टेड. सो कितने भी बोआस तो बहुत पहले ही कर चुके थे, राइट? सो यू कैन काउंट एन नंबर ऑफ एग्जाम्पल्स. आई हैव टू इवन कट शॉर्ट बोआस इन दिस आंसर ऑफ अवर्स. यू मे इनकॉर्पोरेट अगर भूल जाओ तो, ठीक है? ओके, सो नेक्स्ट इज रेसिज्म. What is racism? It's an ideology, right? And this ideology believe in what? This belief that there are some races, or the white races are superior over the colored races, right? This is what it says. What is the basis of racism? Let us just think and write. What is the basis? So, number one, pure blood. यही था ना, नाजी, right? Second, white skin. हाँ, प्योर ब्लड, अच्छा. फीलिंग बाहर आ गई, राइट? सो राइट, you can understand that, right? How much I hate this idea of race. So that's just the manifestation of that. Okay, so white skin color. Okay, white skin color, right? White, you can say the colonial masters, and you can say the colonial powers, they believe that white skin color is superior over the colored, right? Next is the physiological and intellectual superiority. You remember बोआस ने किसको काउंट किया था? Physiological means they can go out, they can cross the oceans, develop colonies somewhere else, so they are more physically, vigorous. And yes, cultural superiority, social Darwinism. Let us reject racism, one by one. No pure blood. Why? Because from the time of origin, since the origin of the humanity or Homo sapiens, we are interbreeding. Not just we are interbreeding among just humans, but we have interbred even with Neanderthals, Denisovans, right? So there is no pure blood. Pure blood is a myth, right? हिटलर ने प्योर ब्लड का कॉन्सेप्ट दिया था सो दैट राइट एक आर्टिफिशियल थ्रेट क्रिएट करना था ना अपनी पावर को कंसोलिडेट करने के लिए सो ही वाज अ वेरी गुड सोशल इंजीनियर राइट सो white skin white skin is nowhere superior, right? It's just an adaptation to the environment, right? Franz Boas with experiment have proved right? He even proved that the larger size of the cranium does not mean higher intelligence. Even the size of the head, it responds to the environmental factors, right? Next, if you see, there is a difference between the size of the cranium of men and women. Does that mean that women are less intelligent? Right? Just forget about the stereotype that is running around in this, right? But is it so? Why then women are topping, on almost all the examinations, right? Right? If it is so, you can, we can measure that, right? And experimentally, वो prove हो जाएगा that average size of the head of a boy and average size of the head of the girl, there are differences. Even in this class, we can prove that. But it does not mean that the higher size of the, or you can say bigger size of the head means more intelligence. No, there is no correlation such that, right? एक ही बात है डियर, एक ही चीज़ में लो, इतना भी मत जाओ, सेम ही एक्सपेरिमेंट डालो, है ना? उसने क्या किया था देखो, पहले तो बिलीफ क्या था, वेस्टर्न वर्ल्ड में बिलीफ था दैट द साइज ऑफ द हेड इज डायरेक्टली कॉरस्पॉन्डिंग टू हायर इंटेलिजेंस, पहला चीज, ठीक है? सो कोई डिफरेंस नहीं है ना साइज और इंटेलिजेंस में, जब दोनों को उन्होंने तो एक बार बोला कि नो, पहला चीज से इट इज नॉट रिलेटेड. You remember Margaret Mead, right? So intelligence and IQ has nothing to do with the size of the head. ठीक है, वो वाला ऐड कर लो, मार्गरेट मीड वाला. So do write a short note on racism. ये आप ही को लिखना है. You have to write this. Write this answer. Racism. हाँ, अभी. कल्चरल सिक्योरिटी हमने बात तो किया था, लिखो अभी, पहले लिखने की कोशिश तो करो. प्रॉब्लम्स भी लिखनी है। इम्प्लीकेशंस क्या हुए रेसिज्म की वजह से, आज की डेट में भी लेके आना है। ब्लैक लाइव्स मैटर, ठीक है। क्या एक्शन लिए जा चुके हैं, क्या और होना चाहिए। Shall I read that you all can write? हाँ कि ना, ये क्या था मुझे समझ में नहीं आता, बिकॉज इन सम प्लेसेस दिस इज नॉट। यस, ओके, सभी लिख लोगे, लिख लोगे, लिख के लाना है कल, ठीक है। शुड आई डिक्टेट? कोई भी नहीं बोल रहा है आज, डिक्टेट नहीं करना है, कर दें, चलो ठीक है कर देते हैं। ये भी सही है। ओके, रेसिज्म is a belief, an ideology which says that some races are biologically and culturally superior over the others. Racism is a misbelief which had led to various kinds of tensions in the world, comma, exploitation of human rights, etc. Racism is based on, next paragraph, the following criteria. Number one, purity of blood, purity of blood, the Nazi notion of pure Aryan blood, pure Aryan blood स्लैश करके लिखो रेस, led to discrimination and exploitation, right? डैश करके लिखो genocide of Jews, right? Second, skin color, the colonials were mainly Westerners who propounded the idea that white skin color is superior to the other colored skins, or we can say colored races, right? एग्जाम्पल आप लिख लो अपना फेवरेट रुडियर किपलिंग, वाइट मैन्स बर्डन, नाम ही है वाइट मैन बर्डन, है ना? छोड़ना नहीं है रुडियर किपलिंग को, राइट? जहां मौका मिल जाए लिख देना है. मैं बदला निकाल रहा हूँ एक्चुअली, मैंने पढ़ा, मुझे बुरी लगी वो पोएम, राइट? So I want, he's a very celebrated poet, undoubtedly, right? He's a very wonderful writer, although, but what he wrote was not, digestible to us colored races, right? So, hmm, hmm. सो बेसिकली मैं कहता हूँ बहुत अच्छे अच्छे चीज़ें भी लिखी हैं इन्होंने, राइट? आई थिंक जंगल बुक भी इन्होंने लिखी है ना? तो बहुत अच्छी अच्छी चीज़ें लिखी हैं, बट जो गलत है वो गलत है ना? सो विल टेक दैट वे, है ना? जैसे जब लोग ये मेमे बना सकते हैं कि अभी ब्रिटेन अपने पास आने वाला है, राइट? सो राइट, कि इंडियन ओरिजिन का जो है उनका प्राइम मिनिस्टर बन गया है, राइट? सो डू राइट. Next is physical and mental superiority or intellectual superiority. Right. Early anthropologists believe that white races had higher cranial capacity, thereby higher intelligence, right? They also believed that white races were physically and physiologically superior to the colored races. अब समझने की बात है, colored races में क्या होता है दे बेसिकली लिव इन द ट्रॉपिकल रीजन. ट्रॉपिकल रीजन में इन्फेक्शियस डिजीजेज ज़्यादा होती थी, राइट? सो वो ज़्यादा जल्दी बीमार होते थे, राइट? लाइफ एक्सपेक्टेंसी भी कम थी. ऑन इफ यू कंपेयर with the colder environment, so that is how the things were. So people used to think, see, you just गर्मी के दिन में आप 1 किलोमीटर चल के दिखाओ रोड पे, राइट? और आप अभी बोलो कि 2 किलोमीटर चलना है, 5 किलोमीटर चलना है, दिल्ली को छोड़ के, राइट? दिल्ली में तो मुश्किल है, राइट? बिकॉज इतनी देर में आप इतना धुआं खा जाओगे, सो इट मे नॉट बी पॉसिबल फॉर यू टू वॉक मच, राइट? एंड इट इज़ नॉट ऑल्सो एडवाइजेबल, राइट? ठंडी हवाएं चल जरूर रही हैं, बट वो हवा नहीं है, राइट? कहीं पता लगे कोई वॉक पे निकल रहे हो अभी, राइट? ओके, नेक्स्ट इज कल्चरल सुपीरियरिटी. कल्चरल सुपीरियरिटी. The early anthropologists, especially the social Darwinists believe social Darwinists and evolutionists भी लिख सकते हो. Evolutionists believe that white races were more intelligent. That is why they developed the civilization while others could not. Right? Criticism of racism, or criticism of the criterias on which racism rests. Criticism of the criterias on which racism is based or rests, right? Number one, there are no pure races in terms of blood or any other feature. Because human populations are interbreeding from the time of its origin. Time of its origin. Right. अब मैं यहाँ पे दूसरा वाला लाइन नहीं लिख रहा हूँ, मोर ओवर करके मैं एक और लाइन लिख सकता था, जो आपने वो क्रेग वेंटर और वो वाला कॉलिंस वाला भी लिख सकते हो, राइट? ह्यूमन जीनोम प्रोजेक्ट वाला, वो भी डाल सकते हो. सेकंड पॉइंट लिख लो. इफ यू वांट टू राइट, जस्ट पुट ए लाइन कि आप वो भी लिख सकते हो यहाँ पे काउंटर करने के लिए, ठीक है? सो आप अपने लिए एक नोट लिख के छोड़ दो, ताकि आपको अगर खुद के याद करने में एटलीस्ट यू कैन रिकलेक्ट, है ना? प्योरिटी ऑफ ब्लड को तो आप किसी भी चीज में काउंटर कर सकते हो ना, किसी भी एक जेनेटिक वाले जो भी थे, है ना? नेक्स्ट पॉइंट, स्किन कलर. Skin color is an adaptation to the sunlight, right? Sunlight, or you can say UV radiations. Right. Populations in the tropical areas, इसी में लिख लो, populations in the tropical areas. लिखना जरूरत हो तभी लिखना, अगर स्पेस कम पड़ रहा है तो नहीं लिखना. Have higher concentration of melanin because it protects them from harmful UV radiations which are very intense, which are very intense. Clear? Next, physical and mental superiority wala, right? Franz Boas, Margaret Mead, and others have rejected the notion of mental superiority, the notion of mental superiority of the white races, over the colored races. Franz Boas, based on his anthropometric study of 18,000 school children of immigrants proved that the size of cranium responds to the environmental forces. Next point. Franz Boas encounter, कोमा करके लिखो, encounter of scientific racism, comma, argued that early developers of civilization were colored races like Indians, Chinese, Egyptians, etc. ठीक है? Indians, Chinese, Egyptians, etc. Right? He also countered the notion of cultural superiority, or ethnocentric beliefs using his celebrated concept of मुझे भी नहीं पता. हाँ, क्या बोला? मैंने क्या बोला? मैं पहले बोल लेता हूँ, उसके बाद रोका करो. राइट? इवन माई फ्लो गोज अवे, है ना? हाँ, कहाँ तक थे? Using his celebrated concept of cultural relativism. Okay. Done? Now, we have countered this. Now, we have to tell that this, you can say, misbelief have resulted into, हमने शुरू में ही बता दिया था. Right? So, there were many measures that were taken to counter racism. What were those measures? The statement of UNESCO, right? Even dropping the term race from the scientific literature of anthropology. So do write. Various measures has been taken by national, international and intellectual bodies throughout the world to counter racism, right? Right? Do right? Ashley Montagu, comma, UNESCO's statement on race, UNESCO's statement on race talks about equality of humans, and dropping the term race in favor of ethnic groups. Right. Montagu, in his classic work, Men's, MAN apostrophe S, Men's Most Dangerous Myth, colon, the fallacy of race, FALLACY, fallacy of race, questioned the scientific validity of race, and thereby racism, right? So there are many measures, right? Next paragraph में लिखो, despite various measures, the race-based discrimination are observed in today's world, डैश करके लिखो, Black Lives Matter movement in US, Black Lives Matter movement in USA is the evidence for that. So it is the high time, next paragraph में लिखो, so it is the high time that the national, international and academic and voluntary bodies should join hand to fight against an enemy that have created artificial divisions in the humankind, ठीक है, इस तरह से थोड़ा सा लिख देना. आई बिलीव आप समझ गए हो कि क्या लिखना है. नेक्स्ट इज जेनेटिक मार्कर्स. नेक्स्ट टॉपिक, राइट, इज जेनेटिक मार्कर्स. So what is a genetic marker? Marker means is a identifier. Right? That means it's a gene sequence, or you can say a DNA sequence, the presence or absence of which can tell about a particular group or a population. Right? Isn't it? Normally we talk about markers of population, but genetic marker can be something that is an identifier of a particular disease. Right? So biology में तो हम वैसे भी बात करते हैं, but since our purpose is not to understand the you can say the medicinal problems, the diseases of a single individual, so हम basically markers को population के level पे देखते हैं. Right? अगर आप कोई मेडिसिन के एक्सपर्ट हैं तो आप इंडिविजुअल के लेवल पे देखोगे. राइट? समझ में आया आपको? हमारा पर्पस पॉपुलेशंस के वेरिएशंस को स्टडी करना है. क्लियर? हमारा पर्पस क्या है? टू अंडरस्टैंड द पॉपुलेशन variations among the populations. Say there is a gene, this is HBS gene, right, or HBE gene, isn't it? Don't you think it's an identifier of a particular group? Right? The presence or absence of, say, like A2 blood group, it's an identifier for Europeans, isn't it? So these are identifiers or markers of a population. समझ में आया आपको? So let's write. Genetic marker is a gene or a DNA sequence with a known location, known, जानी पहचानी, KNOWN, known location on a chromosome that can be used to identify individuals, populations, species, or any diseased condition. Diseased condition. The genetic markers are polymorphic in nature, and that is why they are used to understand inter or intra-population variations. Inter or intra-population variations. In bracket, population genetics. Types of genetic markers. Serological, non-serological, and DNA chromosome. Serological can be subclassified into three: blood antigens, plasma proteins, antigens. Non-serological can be secretor, tester, right? DNA के लेवल पे RFLPs बना लो, जो हमने अभी बनाया था थोड़ी देर पहले. हो जाएगा, बना लोगे ये. Do make fast. I told you you will remember this. It will come again and again. ठीक है, अभी तक तो याद हो गया होगा. डन. कॉपी पेस्ट कर लिया? अच्छा, दिमाग में कर लिया. ओके, टेल मी what are the types of genetic markers without looking at anywhere. Just tell me. हाँ हाँ, सेरोलॉजिकल के तीन बताओ. ब्लड एंटीजेंस के दो एग्जांपल बताओ. RHS ठीक है. हाँ, आप बताइए प्लाज्मा प्रोटीन्स के. सो बना लो, यही इसीलिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ डियर. राइट, जब याद नहीं आ रहा है, दैट्स मीन्स यू हैव टू मेक इट. राइट, इट्स योर वेलफेयर, नॉट माइन. राइट, यूपीएससी में आपको ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट हो रहोगे तो प्रॉब्लम है. राइट, यू शुड बी हार्ड वर्किंग ओनली. ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट नहीं चाहिए उनको, वो बैठे इंटेलिजेंट अपने आप में. राइट, दे विल नॉट एक्सेप्ट एनीवन मोर इंटेलिजेंट देन देमसेल्व्स. ठीक है, जूनियर कितना भी इंटेलिजेंट क्यों ना हो, सीनियर को ये नहीं पता लगना चाहिए कि तुम ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट हो, सीनियर्स. राइट, क्योंकि उसको जिस दिन ये लगा कि तुम ज़्यादा इंटेलिजेंट हो, है तो ह्यूमन ही ना, है ना, सो उसको डाइजेस्ट नहीं होगी. राइट, हाँ, ऐसा कुछ हो जाए दैट यू नो आफ्टर टेकिंग द पोजीशन यू मे यू नो overstep or do something that is, you will get more fame and name. That's altogether different thing. But again, that senior will not like you ever. Right, that is the problem. Few, in my service I have seen that only few of the people, they really feel that others should move ahead. But that's very rare species. In administration that hardly exists. So do write the significance of genetic markers. Number one, genetic markers are useful in identifying a particular population or a species or an individual or a diseased condition. Second, the genetic markers can be useful in tracing the ancestry of a particular species, for example, mitochondrial DNA or Y chromosome DNA markers, mitochondrial DNA or Y chromosome DNA markers are used to trace the ancestry of modern humans, from Eastern Africa, right? एक स्कॉलर है रेबेका कैन और उसके कुछ कोलीग्स, उन्होंने बोला कि ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ स्टडी ऑफ माइटोकॉन्ड्रियल डीएनए दैट modern humans, right, were originated from a mitochondrial Eve that might have existed or that had existed somewhere in Eastern Africa approximately 2 lakh years ago, right? Similarly, Y chromosome research suggests that the father, right, father of all humans, right, all modern humans existed somewhere in Eastern Africa approximately 1 lakh years ago. So there is a discrepancy between the two, right? Okay. Third, genetic markers can be useful to estimate the genetic distance between two individuals, races, or species. Next, the genetic markers can be useful to understand the relationship between inherited disease and genetics. For example, BRCA1 gene and breast cancer. You know that Angelina Jolie had got her breast removed because of this gene. So this gene was very popular gene because of Angelina Jolie, right? Okay, next, genetic markers can also help in understanding human adaptations as well as the relationship between genetics and physical performance. This is a gene, ACTN3 gene, right? It provides cold resistance, number one, resistance to cold, right? And the possessor of this gene, they are basically speed runners, fast distance runners, right? तेज भागते हैं ये लोग, स्पीड रनर्स होते हैं, मतलब शॉर्ट डिस्टेंस स्पीड रनर्स, स्प्रिंटर्स, right? How? Basically sprinters require burst of energy, right? in the fast contracting muscles. स्प्रिंट करते हो तो फास्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग मसल्स के अंदर बहुत फास्ट रिलीज ऑफ ग्लूकोज चाहिए. सो ये जीन क्या करता है, रिलीज ऑफ ग्लूकोज करवाता है उन फास्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग मसल्स में. सो एक क्विक बर्स्ट ऑफ एनर्जी मिलता है, राइट. सिमिलरली दिस हेल्प्स इन एडेप्टेशन. मेरे गांव के पास एक बाबा रहते थे, वो सर्दी में वीडियो में वायरल हो गए, राइट. सर्दी में वो तालाब में पड़े हुए हैं, राइट. राइट. वो बर्फ से नहा रहे हैं, राइट. सो वाई नो हाउ दैट गाय वॉज डूइंग इट, ऐसा कोई पब्लिसिटी स्टंट नहीं था. बेसिकली ही फील्स लेस कोल्ड, right, because of some genetic markers that he had, might be ACTN3 gene, right. अगर उनको रिसर्च करें तो शायद उनमें ACTN3 gene मिल सकता है, right. So these are various significance that we have had for genetic markers. Tomorrow we'll study one by one all of them, right. ये वाला टॉपिक करेंगे, and then after that we will move on to adaptations and then on epidemiology, right. So एक बार 9th चैप्टर खत्म हो जाएगा, फिर हमारे पास थोड़ा सा ईज मिल जाएगा, राइट. देन फिजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी में कुछ बचेगा नहीं, राइट. 3-4 क्लासेस और बचेंगी, सो इजीली खत्म हो जाएगा. सो आई होप आपको ये ज़्यादा टफ नहीं है. रेस तो बहुत इजी टॉपिक है, राइट. फिजिकल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी इतना प्रिडिक्टेबल है, राइट. सी प्रिडिक्टेबल होने के पीछे कारण भी है. दे कैन नॉट गिव, द एग्जामिनर कैन नॉट गिव undue advantage to biology students, right. So largely if you see over last 20-25 years, they did not ask much complicated questions from biology, right, because the students from medical background say, or the people who have studied biology, they will gain undue advantage because of that, right. And since we have started with the idea that anthropology is not purely a biological science, rather the shift is towards the social sciences, rather not just social sciences but rather descriptive subjective science humanities की तरफ shift है हमारा, right. पता है ना difference, science, social science and humanities. Is it a social science? People will say no, it's more subjective, more descriptive, right. Social sciences talk about the generalizations, or you can say generalizations in the sense cause and effect relationship, that analogies. प्रेस्क्रिप्टिव भी होगा कि क्या होना चाहिए, राइट. सो सी यू देन टुमारो, ऑल द बेस्ट, गुड नाइट, स्लीप वेल. ओके.